old walls, if these old walls could speak of things that they remember well, stories and faces dearly held, a couple in love living week to week, rooms full of laughter, if these walls could speak. These old halls, if hallowed halls could talk, these would have a tale to tell of sun going down and dinner bell, and children playing at hide and seek from floor to rafter, if these halls could speak. Tell you that I'm sorry for being cold and blind and weak. They would tell you that it's only that I have a stubborn streak, if these walls could speak. Window panes were eyes, I guess they would have seen it all. Each little tear and sigh and footfall, and every dream that we came to seek or followed after, if these walls could speak. Someone who really loves you, don't ever go away. That's what these walls would say. Someone who really loves you, don't ever go away. That's what these walls would say. That's what these walls would say. That's what these walls would say.
Good morning, friends. Thanks for joining us for another Sunday at Nexus. I'm very excited. Got a big announcement coming up. We'll get to that later, but first we're getting to another one of our collective practices here at Nexus, and this one speaks deeply to me. This one is convicting to me, and I'll tell you why. I mean, this summer, our family had the opportunity to travel out to Alberta, which just was so refreshing on so many levels. Stayed with some friends in Calgary, got to do up in Banff and Canmore, just hiking every day in the beautiful, beautiful mountains, and we loved it. It was just exactly what we needed this summer. But I remember we're driving in the car to this particular hike, and one of my kids says to me, "Dad, can we move here? It's so beautiful. I want to live here." And I thought, apple of my eye. My children have inherited my wanderlust, this idea that the action, the beauty is always somewhere else. And I know, I've talked about this before, got some flack for it. I think Kitchener is a bit of an ugly town, especially when you consider places in the mountains, but it's the place we call home. And despite this wanderlust to live and be in places more beautiful, I think this practice speaks deeply to people like me who feel the constant need to be pioneering or moving on or finding some other better place. This practice is for us, and that this is what we're striving for as a community. So this is our third practice of place and presence. It says this: we are striving to be present wherever we are. We want to walk the Christian path together, fully alert, awake, and aware. We want to travel the path with eyes wide open, trusting that God's Spirit is always at work around and ahead of us. As such, we're striving to be fully present and available to whoever is with us and wherever we find ourselves, at home, in our neighborhoods, at our places of work and play, and within the Nexus community. If you're someone like me, your head can always be someplace else, dreaming about that next vacation, thinking about how great it would be to live by the ocean, in the mountains, something like that. But this practice that we're striving for at Nexus, it's designed to keep us grounded, to remind us that God is at work here in this place with these people on this piece of land. And for me, this is incredibly challenging, and why I like this practice a lot. It forces me to focus and develop a relationship with where I am. And it reminds me of something that's, I think, very easy to miss in scriptures. You see, there are large swaths of the Bible that are, in my estimation, incredibly boring. Maybe that's not a newsflash to some of you, but there are sections in scripture that I often skip without hesitation. And one of the areas I usually skip over immediately when reading scripture is both Matthew and Luke's account of Jesus' genealogy, his family history. I mean, if you want an easy way to take a nap, try reading them for yourself in Matthew 1 and Luke 3. I mean, they're just redundant and boring pieces of scripture. And while they're boring to our sensibilities, the reality is there's a purpose to them, and it's easy to miss. So what I want to do, at risk of putting you all to sleep, is I want to read you Jesus' genealogy, but I want to read it for you. I mentioned last week the First Nations version of the New Testament, and I love it, particularly for this section, because what it does is it gives everyone in the genealogy a sort of name that sort of describes their story a little bit. So if you're looking for a great, interesting way to come at scripture, I can't recommend the First Nations version highly enough. That and David Bentley Hart's version, you've got yourself some great scripture pieces. But this is Jesus's genealogy in Matthew 1 from the First Nations version. And there's something I want us to catch here. It's easy to miss, but let me take us through his genealogy. Here is the record of the ancestry of Creator Sets Free, the Chosen One, a descendant of Much Loved One and Father of Many Nations. From Father of Many Nations to Much Loved One, his ancestors were Father of Many Nations. He made us laugh, heel grabber, give him praise, and his brothers. He breaks through, and his brother First Light, whose mother was fruit of palm tree, circle of teepees, lifted up, noble relative, talks with snakes. He makes peace, moves with strength, whose mother was boastful woman. He works hard, whose mother was beautiful friend, original man, whose father of the great chief, much loved one. From much loved one to the removal to village of confusion, the ancestors of Creator sets free were much loved one, stands in peace, whose mother, daughter of 7, was wife of fire from Creator. Big people maker, he is my father, gathers the people, he makes wrongs right again. Creator is above, my great power. Creator has no equal, held by Creator, he will be strong, he made them forget. Burden bearer, good medicine, and chosen by Creator and his brothers at the time of the removal to village of confusion. From the removal to village of confusion to the birth of Creator sets free, his ancestors were chosen by Creator, ask Creator, born in village of confusion. Father boasts in him, he builds up, he helps, stands with a good heart, stands firm, power of Creator. Creator helps him, gifted by Creator, heel grabber, who was the husband of bitter tears, who gave birth to Creator, sets free, who is the chosen one. And so, there were 14 generations from father of many nations to much loved one, 14 more generations from much loved one until the removal to village of confusion, and then 14 more from the removal to Creator sets free, the chosen one. Wow, that is a lot of ancestry. I mean, I can't even name my great-grandparents. And here we have 14 generations, 14 generations, 14 generations. And these genealogies don't exactly make for riveting reading, but they do serve this essential purpose. What these genealogies are doing is they are connecting Jesus to a particular people and to a particular piece of land. You see, Jesus didn't travel through life universally connected to all of humanity. When Jesus came, he was tied to a very specific people and a very specific piece of land. And I believe that the Jesus path asks the same of us. Now, Matthew's genealogy traces Jesus' lineage back 40 generations, ultimately tying Jesus to Abraham. But I did you a favor. I read that one because Luke, it would seem in an effort to out genealogy Matthew, traces Jesus' heritage back even further. And the point for these two gospel writers is immediate, even if boring. Jesus comes from the deep history of a people and a piece of land. Jesus was a Jew through and through, and the place he called home was first century Palestine, a land with a whole lot of history. And so the endless names in Jesus' family history as they go on, they're there to make a point. You can't separate Jesus from a piece of land and his people. And I think the Jesus path asks the same of us. To travel Jesus' path is to bind yourself to a land and a people. Now, of course, we live in an age of autonomy and mobility, right? And the idea of binding yourself to a piece of land and a people, it can feel to us like suffocating, right? Like, I think most of us love the idea, at least in theory, of being beholden to nothing. There are too many commitments in life already, right? Our mobility and autonomy are like these passes we carry around in our back pocket. It's like a freedom-granting pass if we ever need to use it. It's like, should my family, friends, or community fail me here, I can always move somewhere else and find another group of friends or community, or if this city, Kitchener, ever becomes too ugly, too boring for me, I've got my card here, I can always pack up and head somewhere else. I mean, do you ever, like Kramer from Seinfeld, do you ever yearn?
Are you ready to order?
Yeah.
No, not yet. Excuse me, we gotta... Do you ever yearn?
Yearn? Do I yearn?
I yearn.
You yearn?
Oh, yes, I yearn. Often I sit and yearn. Have you yearned?
Well, not recently. I craved. I crave all the time, constant craving. I haven't yearned.
Look at you.
Do you ever just sit and yearn like Kramer? I don't know about you, but sometimes I sit and I yearn. What do I mean by that? It's no secret I'm a great lover of the U.S. Southwest. If I had to pick one state that I think is just jaw-droppingly gorgeous, it would be Utah. And sometimes I find myself just thinking, to live in Utah, to be close to those canyons and those landscape and the hiking, I remember even one time I just, out of curiosity, looked up land prices there, and it's way cheaper than it is here. I mean, you could do yourself pretty well getting a house down there. Sometimes I just fantasize about living in a place like Utah. And of course, the idea is beyond absurd. The grass is always greener on the other side, but there's so many things that just don't make sense about someone like me moving to Utah, of course, besides leaving family, friends, community here. But consider this, 63% of the Utah population is Mormon. I'm not exactly sure there's a big market for someone like me in Utah. It's pretty heavy Mormon country. But also get this, I was traveling there with my brothers, and we found out the hard way that Utah has some of the most restrictive alcohol laws in North America. I mean, it is ridiculously hard to get yourself a nice beer or a nice bottle of wine. We were in this backwater town. We were doing some hiking, staying over in this little sketchy motel. And after our day of hiking, we sat down and we were like, hey, let's relax this evening, get ourselves a few beers to enjoy together. Went to the local store. They had nothing. They're like, you don't understand. It's very hard to get alcohol here. They said there's one store, one little gas station that sells beer just down the road. So we went there. And what we realized is that Utah has a ban. You can't sell anything that has more than 4% alcohol in it. My goodness, can you imagine living in that sort of repressive environment? So what we ended up with, because our selection was so few, was this. Polygamy Porter, it was called. 3.5% alcohol. And then its tagline was, because one is not enough. Oh, that was rich. That was rich. But there's this idea, right, where it can be easy to fantasize about being somewhere else, where the action is, where it's beautiful, and in the process we lose what is right in front of us. We can be so other place minded that we forget that God is at work here, and that we are called, as Jesus was, to a piece of land and a group of people. As humans, we often yearn and crave for something different, a taste of the unfamiliar. There's a bit of a pioneer spirit in all of us, wanting to know what's over that next ridge, that next mountain, what's over there. Would it be better over there? But what the Jesus path through Jesus' genealogy and life teaches us is that I think a life well lived comes in binding ourselves to a land and a people. Consider The Power of Place, Choosing Stability in a Rootless Age by Daniel Groff. This is coming out in late October. Or The Wisdom of Stability, Rooting Faith in a Mobile Culture by Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove. Or the recent book, Uprooted, Recovering the Legacy of the Places We've Left Behind by Grace Olmsted. Now, each of these books are pointing towards the same thing. We've been taught to believe that happiness and fulfillment comes from our autonomy and mobility. But what these books argue is that the exact opposite is in fact true. What these works are highlighting is that many things are lost when people are divorced from a piece of land and from a particular group of people. And what they highlight is the richness that comes from, I would call it like this patient, enduring commitment to places and people, and how that nurtures us. I mean, reading Olmsted's book confirms the need for roots that humanity has. It's a universal, you could almost call it an essential need of humanity to have roots somewhere. Consider these words of hers in her book. We must recover what it means to develop a sense of fidelity and interdependence with the places we live. Even when most of us can't live a lifetime in one place, live there like you're going to. Learn how to commit to a place. I love that idea of hers. I think the truth is most of us probably won't end up living in the same house or apartment or even the same city over the course of our entire lives, but I love her admonition, live where you are like you're going to be there forever. Live wherever you are right now as if you are in your forever home, your forever place, your neighborhood, your city, your street. Live in those places with an air as if this is home for life. And so this idea of being attached to land and a people is starting to become recovered, not only because we've lost so much, but as a way to connect us and root us in a time where we're hyper-connected and yet many of us still feel lonely. And so this is the idea informing this practice of ours at Nexus. We are striving to be aware and awake and present wherever we are. And I don't know about you, but for me, this is a challenge because my head can be oftentimes anywhere but here, anywhere but what's in front of me. And so this is what we're striving for. And, this summer, our leadership team did a lot of work spending a good amount of time asking ourselves, how can we enact these practices of ours more fully? How can we really go after them in the life of our community? And one of the things we landed on this summer as a leadership team was our need to be much more intentional about what we focus on here at Nexus. Because I think the reality for a community like ours is this: there are so many needs within our city, let alone around the globe. So many needs calling for our attention, calling for our help. There are hundreds of places that we could choose to focus our energies as a community. And of course, we always want to bless. There's so many people in the Nexus community doing amazing, interesting work. But one of the convictions we had this summer was that as a community, we could focus our energies on a few things informed by this idea of land and people. And that is what leadership set out to do. And so over the course of the summer, we looked through minutes from past family meetings. We recounted some of the things we've heard from the Nexus community about what we're passionate about here. And we came at this with this lens of land and people and place and presence, and asked ourselves this question: what areas would it make sense for us as a community to focus on with these values in mind? And what we landed on were three things. The first thing we landed on was this: is looking through our community, one of the things we know that people are very eager to get behind and support is actually an organization run by one of our own, Glenn Pascoe. And Glenn our community is richer for him. He has blessed us in so many ways, and he has started an amazing organization called One for Another, which essentially provides needed surgeries for children in Uganda. And many of us have gotten behind what Glenn's doing. Many of us have donated, participated in the events like the runs or some of the auctions that they have done. It seemed to us like this is already a bit of a no-brainer. This is a place where many of us have gotten behind before. But what we wanted to do was make sure that we take that and bolster it to the next level, get a real partnership going. And so that's what we're going to try to do. You'll hear more about that over the coming weeks and months. But second, this idea of land really spoke to us as well. And I know many of us here are passionate about environmental justice. And just this summer, even while I was out in Banff with the wildfire smoke out there the whole time, I think many of us are realizing that things are becoming dire with our climate. And so we wanted to elevate environmental justice as one of the areas that we focus on as a community. Finally, affordable housing. And it's hard to believe, but 18 months ago, we brought you a project from Union Cooperative Housing. We had this big family meeting. I think it was in February of 2020. right before the pandemic struck, and there was a bunch of excitement about Nexus really getting invested in affordable housing, and then the pandemic came, and boom, everything seemed to be put on hold. But this is very clear to us, a passion here at Nexus that everyone seemed behind and excited about. And so we want to make affordable housing, dealing with anything under that umbrella. We want to make that an area of focus and passion for us here at Nexus. Of course, how do we do all these things? How do we get involved? Of course, Melissa Bowman has been our outreach coordinator here at Nexus for a while now, but this summer we tasked her with taking these 3 areas and really pushing us forward and driving them forward for us as a community. And so she is taking these on, and I'm excited about all that she's bringing and the ideas she has. And so I'm going to have Melissa Bowman join me here for a time of conversation where we can talk about 2 of these areas of focus anyway, and give us some ideas about what we're thinking, but also reveal the big announcement that I'm excited about. So I'm going to have Melissa Bowman join me, but I thought before we get into the nitty-gritty, it would be interesting to do a little bit of a rapid-fire question with Melissa. So we're going to start with that, and then we'll get into particularly environmental justice and affordable housing. All right, good morning, Melissa. How are you?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing very well. I thought before we get into the nitty-gritty, I've got some rapid-fire questions to ask you. It's been a while since you've been on camera with us, so I thought people could use a little refresher on who Melissa Bowman is. So, Melissa, you are a fan of all things Kitchener. Let's start with an easy one. What's the best restaurant in Kitchener?
Oh my goodness, that's not an easy one. There's so many. We went to La Cucina recently. That was my first time being there. And they had like some good pizza and pasta, a nice drink menu. There's several in the downtown core that I like. Also like Grand Trunk. Yeah.
That's a great place.
Yeah.
I love that place. Okay. Now, the pandemic's been tough on all of us. During the pandemic, how many days have you forgotten to brush your teeth?
There have definitely been times when I've made it later in the day thinking, pretty sure I haven't done it yet, but I don't think I fully missed.
You've never fully missed a day?
I don't think I fully missed a day, but definitely like getting close to supper time where I'm like, pretty sure I haven't done that yet today.
All right. Okay. That's good to know. Third question for you. How often do you wish you lived on this side of King Street?
Oh, well, that should have been what you led with. That's the easy one. 0 times.
0 times. 0 times. Interesting. All right. Well, Melissa, I've been doing some research on your Twitter here. You recently bought a shirt with a map of Kitchener on it. I want to ask you, isn't it hard to get directions when you're looking at a map upside down?
It would be very difficult, but I love maps, and I love looking at maps. I love reading like the place names on maps, but maps do not serve me well in actually helping me get from point A to point B. I'm one of those people who turn like maps the direction that I'm headed. So
that's good. Okay. Yes. All right. I think you'll appreciate this one. Melissa, what is your favorite car, and tell us why it's better than biking?
Oh, clearly pickup trucks. Ford 150 probably. 150. Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You recently asked on Twitter, what is the best season and why is it fall? Melissa, what do you have against summer?
Too hot. Yeah, too hot. I really love, and I mean, fall has everything. It's got the cooler temperatures. It's got the colorful leaves. It's like perfect biking weather.
I suppose. Okay. No, hey, that makes sense to me. Now, in my notes here, I have that you're a runner. Is that correct, Melissa?
Runner would be an optimistic way of looking at it, but I get out with running shoes on and try to move faster than walking.
I see. Well, tell us then, what are you running from, Melissa?
These rapid-fire questions.
Okay. Next one. In 2018, you were awarded the Mayor's City Builder Award. Could you tell us what buildings you've helped design and build in our city?
Pretty sure that's not the kind of city building I'm doing.
Okay. Kind of giving that award out to anyone these days, are they? I see. Okay. All right. You have been known to watch the entirety of city council meetings. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Tell us, Melissa, why is your life so sad?
Yes, I admit that it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I encourage you to check it out.
Check it.
Yes,
I should sometime.
I can give you like my top 5 best council meetings to watch. Sometimes.
There's a. Oh wow. Okay, we'll have to look forward to that post sometime from you. Final question: you were president of the Victoria Park Neighborhood Association, and under your tenure, Bronson Taylor moved into the neighborhood. Don't you feel you owe your constituents an apology?
I'll let Bronson answer that question.
Right. Fair enough. Thank you, Melissa, for answering our rapid fire questions. Let's get down to business.
Wait, when do I get to ask you rapid fire questions?
Well, folks, we are talking, of course, to Melissa about the 3 focuses, aims that we have at Nexus this year. And of course, we're going to get to one for another down the line in a few weeks or months. For now, though, we want to focus on housing and environmental justice. And there's some really exciting news. Why don't you tell us what's going on the front of housing and Nexus?
Sure. Well, the big news that's super exciting is that Nexus has invested $10,000 into Union, and we're kind of leading the way on this. There's some other churches who are interested in doing this, but Nexus is kind of the test case, the leader in this way. And so very excited to be able to have given that investment to Union just this week. And then, of course, for those who have been following along for a little while, you may recall that there are opportunities for individuals as well to become involved. So you can do that by becoming a member, and you purchase a member share. That's $500. That gives you voting rights and say in what happens, things like decisions around, what property will be the first that we buy, which we're looking at a number of properties right now. Just looked at another one this week. So that's moving along well. And then you can also invest personally in addition to becoming a member, and also just spreading the word. I mean, letting people know about what Union is all about and what we're up to. So that's a huge help. If you think coworkers or friends or family would be interested, there's lots of great ways to just share what we're doing.
That is great, Melissa. It's awesome that we're involved collectively as a church, but we want to encourage people, of course, to get involved individually, because what we sensed 18 months ago is that housing was perhaps the area that the Nexus community was most passionate about. So we're in collectively. We would love to encourage all of us, as many of us as can, to get involved in this as well. But maybe that's not the right opportunity for you. There are other areas that we're going to focus on as well. One of those is something called a Better Tent City. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I think most of us are familiar that there's a housing crisis, an affordability crisis, and that in that there's sort of a spectrum of needs and areas that people are focusing on. So a Better Tent City is trying to address kind of the left end of the spectrum, sort of the hard to house, the people who have not been successful in maybe the shelter system. It's not a good fit for them for a variety of reasons. And so there's been a number of tiny homes. I think they're at about 45 to 50 tiny homes that have been built. They've been in a few different locations. As you can imagine, it's hard to find a perfect spot for this community. They will probably be on the move again later in October. But right now they're out on Battler Road, and there's a community who is trying to support individuals in this stage of their life, and we have an opportunity to bring food for them. Right now where they are, they don't have a lot of kitchen access. It's really an outdoor community that has these tiny homes, but obviously don't have a lot of kitchen facilities. And so they're looking for people who prepare the food and bring it warm and ready to eat kind of thing. And so I posted on Facebook, and I'll share in the weekly upcoming opportunities about that. But October 15th and October 29th are 2 dates where we are slotted in for providing some food. And that probably looks like casseroles or chilies, buns, salad. We might do like a pizza party for one of those nights where we just buy a whole bunch of pizza and provide some snacks along with that.
Awesome. So in lieu of, we can't do soup Sundays right now. So for all those of us itching to maybe create something, this would be a great opportunity for that. And we're going to keep focusing on housing, but other groups involved in affordable housing opportunities with Better Tent City. We're going to go hard on those. And of course, if any of you have ideas around housing, talk to Melissa. We'd love to go hard at that here at Nexus. Now, our second area of focus is, of course, environmental justice, right? And tell us a little bit about how we can go about doing that. Because I know this, for me, is perhaps one of the harder areas where it feels like on an individual level, it's like, maybe I changed my light bulbs, right? Like, how can we meaningfully, as a community, get involved with environmental justice here in KW?
Yeah, so I think that you touched on a big point. Like, is this a larger communal activity, or is it an individual basis? And I think what we're going to try to do is offer both opportunities. So I'm part of something called Faith Climate Justice, who's working with an organization called 50 by 30 Waterloo Region. And it's really looking at what can faith communities do to advocate as a collective at local councils. They recently had some success with the Transform Waterloo Region policies. It got approved over the summer, and a lot of climate justice stuff was included in that, largely because of the advocacy work that they're doing. So I'm staying in the loop with that, and I will probably have updates around some of the ways that Nexus can participate in that. But on a very individual level, I'm kind of excited about this. October is Zero Waste Challenge Month with Reap Green Solutions. And people have the opportunity to sign on to this sort of challenge where you find a glass jar, maybe a Ziploc bag could work too, that type of thing. And you commit to putting all of the things that can't be recycled, reused, put in the green bin. You put all of those things in your jar, and then at the end, you can do it for a month. I think Nexus, we're going to try to do it the third week in October, 1 week straight. Just it's a way to bring attention to the things that are not easily recycled, reduced, reused, that type of thing, and see what we can learn from that. So I think later in the month, we'll maybe have a conversation with a few people and see what they learn. I have done this challenge in the past, and it's chip bags is the number one thing that fills my thing, because they're so big. And like trying to, cut it up, try to cram it in the jar.
Wow.
So it will be interesting to have some conversations about what are those things that can't really be reused. Now, I think I've heard some people like the chippery. Is it the chippery?
Yes.
Now I'm wondering what their packaging.
Yeah, I gotta need to look into some alternatives for sure for that week. But I'll tell you, this excites me because I don't know about others, but during the pandemic, life kind of feels overwhelming, and so it's always this sort of I'll get around to doing something when life settles down, and that just never seems to happen. I think this is the perfect time for us. We're getting settled into the fall. We can take on a challenge like this. I'm really excited about this at our home. I didn't realize about the chip bags, though, so I need to plan ahead. I think we're all going to have to plan ahead for that week, how to keep our trash to a minimum. And I was talking earlier this morning about the need to protect our land, and I think this is a great, at least consciousness-raising, event we can do together. Help us take a look at how much we throw out. So I'm excited for this. I think it's going to be a challenge for sure.
I think it's a great one too that can involve the whole family. So I think kids would be really on board to do this, and they may be the gatekeepers on what. There is
no doubt about it here. They will be guarding me from the chips, yes. Apparently. Okay, well, that'd be good for me to go a week without chips anyway. So wonderful. Okay, I can't wait to hear more from you in the fall as some of these things get going. So we'll be hearing from you regularly. But thanks for being a good sport. Thanks for joining us this morning. Anything else you want to throw in? Or?
Just know that we've got the Facebook page. We also have Twitter. I don't know if everybody knows that. We're just at Nexus Church KW on Twitter. And then I guess next time we meet, I will have the rapid fire questions for you.
Well, we'll see about that. We'll see. Anywho, Melissa, thanks for joining us. Have a great morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and energy this morning. Thanks to Melissa for being a good sport, but also bringing us that amazing announcement that Nexus is now invested $10,000 into affordable housing. This is a huge accomplishment for us as a community. I'm so proud, so excited of where we're headed, and all the ways that she listed that we're going to be focusing on and getting involved. This is an exciting time. And friends, I know we're not out of the woods yet with this pandemic, but we are moving. The train is out of the station and we are eager to get going on some of these things. I hope you will join us. Hope you will be able to get involved as you are able. But thanks again for your time and attention this morning. We appreciate it. For this week, go in peace.